you went to the wedding yesterday.
I did.
I love what you said about dress where you want to be.
That's when you need to start adjusting your diet. That's when you need to start adjusting your eating habits, your exercise.
You have to learn to have some type of balance in your life.
So as a leader, you got to learn how to do the things that are the hardest for you in front of others.
Yes. I love it.
Location, your budget, the space that you're looking for, all of that. Go ahead and purchase that house and work your way up to those other credit scores.
Thank you for joining us for the Let's Talk About It with Your Agent Ayana podcast. Today, I am so excited because we have Pastor David Luke. Pastor, I am so excited about you being here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to be in the business of an Afro-American businesswoman, a fabulous journey.
You.
This is just an exciting time to be here, to have the inspiration to own your own business in this time. I'm excited. Thank you, and I'm honored.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So would you please introduce yourself to the audience and just talk about exactly who you are and what you do?
Listen, I'm a man of many hats. I am the father of two adult children. Thank you, Jesus. We're gratified. They're both on their own. They're not out of my pockets, but they're out of my house. Every parent knows exactly where we're going. But I'm excited to have reared children that was inspired to go to college.
Absolutely.
That was important to create that freedom early. Married 17 years to Karen Luke.
Congratulations.
We reside right near here on St. Clair Marina Lake. We have a dog, and that's where we live.
Okay.
We share the inspiration with our 105-pound lab, so nobody come try anything. I'm the pastor of Stone Springfield African Methodist Episcopal Church. I've pastored most of my life. I've pastored for 27 years.
Wow.
And that's been the love of my life. That's been the joy that God has called me into. I'm also a business owner. Mm-hmm. I'm a business consultant. I've owned my business consulting practice for over 30 years.
Wow.
And God is just good. I'm just excited to see Afro-American women owning businesses. And I'm excited. State Farm is a great company. And I thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you. So my first question to you is, what inspired you to focus and become an advocate for financial literacy within the community?
One of the things, I guess part of my introduction should have been, I come from a poor family. Poor being, we did not have literacy. I have 11 brothers and sisters, reared in a small house in Phoenix City, Alabama. But the main industry was cotton mills. So you got a cotton mill job, you got a contracting job with construction. That was wonderful. And here's the thing. We didn't have to be poor because we didn't have a lot. We just didn't use what we had to the best. And so as I grew older, I had friends who had family members who matriculated, had gone to school. Their life was different. Mm-hmm. Not because they were better, but because they knew better what to do with their resources. And I watched them. Mm-hmm. I became the advocate in our family to work hard, to not just go the 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. I was the first one in my family to own a business. And it changed, Ms. Ford, it changed the way I looked at life. Mm-hmm. You know, I struggled all of my life, but I've never been unemployed since I was 13.
Wow.
I've saved since I was 13 years old.
Wow.
And the challenge has been being disciplined. Mm-hmm. And I see one of the things that we don't teach in schools anymore is, what do you do with the dollar once you get it? Mm-hmm. And so we teach people now, our children, how to make money, but not what to do with it once they get it. So then the translation is, we've created more millionaires through athletics, mm-hmm. but now we see those same millionaires going broke.
Right.
So we see where the literacy has worked its way into our community, the illiteracy. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to be a part of this statistic. And so my church family, every church I've ever been in, same thing. I was a part of a church in Millersville, when Ream and the Shaw and all the other factories closed. Mm-hmm. 200 people in one day lost their jobs. Wow. I mean, households lost their jobs. So that was an immediate impact on my church.
Right.
So now those persons who were tithing $200, $300 a month, now we're only getting $300 a month. So but they didn't know how to deal with their money. So we were just trying to fix ourselves. So how can we fix this problem? It starts when that child starts to ask you for toys. And how do you deal with those having the abundance? We all want to bless our children. We all want, and I am guilty of doing that because I had started having children when I was 22. So, I was that dad that ran from toy store to toy store, buying everything I could possibly buy for the child, and not always making the best decisions. So it's not even a point of having education from the standpoint of scholastics, because I know a whole lot of people with doctorate degrees that's broke. That's not doing the right thing, that's not purchasing the house, that's overspending on cars, not having enough insurance. I'm sure you have products here that could help us. I mean, I have business friends that are clients that one accident take the whole family out because you don't have enough insurance. Nobody, or how many times have we sat with families and have to raise money
Right.
for a $9,000 funeral,
Right.
but you're driving a $75,000 car.
Right.
So I didn't want my family to have to go through that. So I became an advocate.
Awesome. So let's delve a little deeper into raising, having the GoFundMes, raising money. What would you say to individuals who are driving a $75,000 car but don't have life insurance?
It becomes that critical decision. Most people are forcing the budgeting. We don't take advantage of the full advantage of 401ks, things of that nature, because you can always borrow from that. Home ownership gives us the advantage to borrow out of our equity, but we never had that conversation.
Right.
I learned after I didn't need it, and I think when we go to GoFundMe and those type things like that, we are still dependent upon someone, and and I didn't want to go to this early in the interview, but the challenge with this is a mentality that we inherited. We were taught from a very early age, we were indoctrinated into a mindset that we are less than, we don't deserve. That's the way the slave masters kept us. We will always outnumber them, but they kept our minds like that. And so when we look at how we live, it's as soon as we get $1,
we gotta spend it.
we are running to spend it. And to my surprise, a couple of years ago, we were walking through the African American Museum, and we always thought that cotton was a capitalist of slavery. No, it was sugar. It was how we were attracted to the taste, and we've transferred how we lived as slaves into how we spend. We upset, girl, let's go shopping. Man.
What is that? What is it, therapy?
Yeah, shopping therapy. Yeah. So, but
Retail therapy.
Yeah, retail therapy.
Yeah.
But brothers got it too. So we go through a tragic situation. Sister girl decide to move on to the other side, and we go buy us a car. We don't need a car. We go buy it, and so then we're trapping ourselves. But the trapping even started at an early age, how we teach our children. Man, listen, when I was a kid, we shopped at Goodwill. I bought my first couple of pair of shoes out of the grocery store. That's right down Sill Road. We're digging through the basket. My parents never put that on us. So when I was able to get the things that I wanted, it was a very slow process for me.
Yeah.
Because while I felt like I deserved them, I was trained differently. I was trained to take care of my family. I teach in my church literacy. We don't overspend in the church. We don't beg, we don't borrow, we don't steal. All those things that were indoctrinated into us as when we were suppressed, we brought them into our homes. So we don't translate well. We don't do the small things well. So I hope I answered that question.
Absolutely. So what do you advise families to do? I mean, and I know this is a huge conversation,
Yes.
but what are some of the small steps that families can take to at least learn more?
One of the things that, when I look back on my parents, my dad was a carpenter. My mother worked in the factories until she became disabled. Here's the thing, and that's why I said I didn't know we were poor till I got to college. I mean, I got to college and I started seeing people like, what? My daddy doesn't have a car like that. Tuskegee University was a place to be, but I didn't know I was poor because my dad always had money. So he would save, but not in the traditional sense. He would say, my dad and his brothers were bootleggers. I mean, he's gone to heaven now, so y'all can go over there and try to arrest the person that lives near him. So, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, they kept cash. So he kept cash around, and he'd always work side jobs. So whenever we needed something, we had what we needed, just not what we wanted. So the translation to people is we got to change the trajectory of what we want. Because if the Bible says the Lord will give you the desires of your heart, then your heart ought to align with what God desires for you. And if God doesn't desire for any of his people to be stressed out, and I'm sure in your business you can relate to this. You're talking to people, you look at their income, and they want this much income. And I'm like, what if something happened?
Right.
I've had instances where, when I lived in Florida, before we can get the wood off of the house, another hurricane came. And in Georgia, I've had situations where a tree fell one week, and before it was a huge storm, before the agents and everybody could get out, another storm came, another tree fell. So, do we have enough in the area of security? Because I can tell you right now, cars are not in. Yes, get your house, but you don't have to go buy the whole block and it's just you. We started off in a very small house and paid for it. We paid for our houses because we thought that was what we were supposed to do. I've owned a house since I was in my 20s. Now let me just confess to this just in case somebody see it. I have struggled in this same area because I've always made money. But it doesn't matter how much money you make if you don't know what to do with it. I'm a chaplain at Georgia Military College, been there for 14 years. So we train students from the time they are cadets to they are second lieutenants. Once you reach from cadet status to second lieutenant, you're grown. You're traveling around the world. You're gonna get a check every month. Some of them make as much as $8,000 a month. So you're going from a meal plan to $8,000 a month. And nobody's told you how to write a check. Nobody's told you how to choose a car in your budget. Nobody's told you about insurance. The military families are spoiled in the sense that they don't have to know that. Somebody's going to give you a military vehicle to drive. You're going to have military housing. But what are you doing with the money you save? Can't get your body gonna run out of places to put those tattoos after a while.
Yeah.
and you just have to talk sense to people about what's next.
Yeah.
And when you're young, and I'm guilty. I was in my 20s. Man, I had the best car. I had all that stuff. Didn't have no insurance. Never mind an accident. I could have a flat tire because I was spending every dime I had. I'm not gonna tell y'all where I was going. That's not y'all business. I was balling till I was falling, and most of the time couldn't get up. But the Lord kept me. Thank you, Jesus. So, but Miami was a fabulous place, but not for a person that didn't have financial literacy. So I would tell them to plan, save, and the hardest thing to do is to see your friends going out every weekend. You're not saving.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going out, you're having a good time, and now you're living from check to check.
Right.
That is the most. That's worse than being hooked up to a dialysis machine. Because you are now struggling to come into work, can't buy lunch. No, I worked in a company where everybody made big money. Man, I didn't know anything about Miami. I was like, y'all going where? Barachis? They're spending $100 on lunch. I was spending $100. I know I couldn't afford it. I was there every time they were there. And the crazy thing about it, I wouldn't miss my money till it was time for my friends to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was making over 150,000
Wow.
in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it. But then the other part of that, when you're saving, find people that understand what it means to save. You don't see people that are fit hang out with fat people. Here's why. If you do, you'll soon be fat.
Mm-hmm.
But person with money will hang with a broke person and wonder how they got broke.
Mm-hmm.
That's how.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's family, who it is, draw the line. I'm not loaning you money that you're not able to take.
Mm-hmm.
If you get your credit up, we can work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So from your perspective, how does financial literacy contribute to the advocacy within community initiatives?
Well, that's a great question. So, if we're going to be empowered as a race, be empowered as a people, we got to know what counts. And most people that you talk to, even those who are successful in business, don't understand credit. They don't understand how when your credit score is in the right range, it costs you less to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So create those banking relationships where you can take advantage of opportunities like being a business owner. You may have the best idea in the world, but it costs to be in a space like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great location, but it costs to be here. Otherwise, you're stuck on the backside of some farm. God bless those that are down there, but we're in a great location here. But you got to have that credit bill here.
Right.
So it limits opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I talk to my children now about credit, I talk to them in terms of the limitations. What a 500 credit score does versus an 800 credit score.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk in the bank with an 800 credit score, they remember your name. Yes, they'll help you. And I think one of the challenges that happens, we don't always understand how we overcome. We are trapping ourselves by what we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
My people perish because of the lack of knowledge. So we've always gone to the pulpit to find knowledge. And now we have people dancing in the pulpit, shouting without giving their audience knowledge. They're now depending on Siri and people on TikTok and all those people,
Mm-hmm.
which is not traditional, the way we need to be educated. Because the contributing factors, even when you're getting insurance, they look at your credit rating.
Mm-hmm.
And you're paying based on your credit worthiness. When you purchase that home, you're paying $1,100 for a house that someone else is paying $1,800.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood that.
Yeah.
I drove what they drove, but I paid more. And it infuriated me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, man, how could I be so stupid? Nobody ever told me. So it impacts us because it limits how we grow.
Yeah.
It limits how we grow. And the more we know, the more we grow. You can get more house. If you have that 800 credit score, if you can go back and borrow some of the PP money you loaned some people,
Mm-hmm.
and get some of that money back and pay off some of those credit cards,
Oh, yeah.
the score's going to creep up.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of the challenge of having people do what they need to do, is letting them know the impact.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to get to the next space, you're going to have to move your credit.
Mm-hmm.
No, there are jobs you cannot get if you don't have good credit.
Right.
I was in sales, and back then I worked in for AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
We had thousands of dollars worth of equipment that we would walk out of the office with every day. Never knew they checked our credit every month.
Wow.
Never knew that as a 22-year-old. But guess what? You're leaving the office with sometimes $40,000 worth of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes trucks would have to deliver my sales. If I go to Florida Power and Light and close the sale for 100 phones, that's about $20,000. So I never thought about that. I'm young, I'm driving, I'm going to McDonald's grabbing, give me a sweet tea. Oh yeah, make some lemons and another apple pie. Trunk full of phones, not even thinking about the risk.
Yeah.
But they did, because they understand the credit worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get a job that gives you a credit card. I had this same conversation with my daughter when she started work for the Senate. First thing they gave her was a credit card. Baby, you're not going to be coming asking them for money every day. They're going to give you a card. You have it now in American Express with a $20,000 limit. And because of your credit, they trust you. You don't have it, you're going over that 400 credit score, they can say, listen, here's an EBT card. You go down the street and get you a honey bun and a drink.
Nobody.
Work with it. So get your credit up. They gotta know the impact.
Yeah, I got you. So what is next for Pastor Luke?
Listen, I am thinking about retirement every day.
Okay.
I love my ministry. That's where I am. That's where I'm waiting on God. I'm trying to prepare myself for the next move of God. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna be one of those pastors that stand in the pulpit that y'all laughing at. You know, I forget my words. I'm looking around at my wife and she going. I'm not gonna be that pastor. We're gonna be on the boat chilling. We really want to grow. We just went through a very traumatic thing. We lost the mother, my wife's mom, who lived with us.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, the sorry part, I'm hurt, but she made us want to live because she impacted the way we understood credit and creditworthiness. This single woman was the owner of multiple homes in Southwest Louisiana. Put herself through school, made sure that every one of her grandchildren owned homes, that wanted to own homes, got them their car, taught them about credit, gave them a God plan, and also made sure that her children were well. That's the inheritance that we want to live with. And I think when we look at our lives, that's what I'm working on. I want to make sure I leave a legacy for my children.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure I connect with business owners like yourself. I want to share with successful people that, that are doing things. I want to partner with persons like yourself with ministry in every community I've been in, because if you don't show your people what success looks like, they won't know.
Absolutely.
People need to see Afro-American business owners. You need to tell your story. You need to tell the story of what makes you an owner. State Farm. Girl, that's big time. I want to take a picture with you. I want to put it on my Facebook page. I'm going to tell people I got a friend that owns a State Farm agency. Don't mess with me. Don't come for me.
Don't mess with me.
But I brag on Afro-American business owners because if you cannot work a 40-hour week job, don't come over here. Because I don't know how many hours I work. Because I don't get to take lunch breaks. I don't get to do the traditional, girl, I'm off this weekend. No, not if my clients need me.
Right.
I was in the car just now, finishing writing the last notes on my sermon. I was like, I got to get this in.
Yeah.
But I just appreciate you inviting me. I appreciate
Absolutely
what you do to inspire others.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure that my daughter gets to meet you and that, others that I see that you're a leader in Newton County, and I want them to understand and know what it takes to be a leader.
Well, thank you so much. God has definitely blessed me, overwhelmingly, abundantly, and He keeps overflowing. So I'm thankful and I'm grateful that you were able to come out and join us for today's segment. Audience, thank you for joining us as well.
God bless you.
All right, and be blessed. So during today's segment of Ask Dr. Eddie, we will be discussing healthcare disparities. So Dr. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us again. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So since we're discussing healthcare disparities, can you explain in layman's terms what healthcare disparities are and who they affect the most?
Okay. All right. Well, hello, audience, and it's good to be back. And you get the real Dr. Eddie coming from work in my work attire. This is my work gear, so that I am really an MD doctor. Okay. But today is one of those topics that are really affecting and talk about social issues and kind of a technical sort of talk versus the bread and butter kind of things that I do, the healthcare. But needless to say, it is just as important. And so I like the way you lay it in, because I borrowed a little paper because I want to, it's technical, because I want to read what the CDC says healthcare disparities are. And then I'm going to expound on it from there. And there's a couple of good definitions. Well, there's one, I've read several, but here's what I really think healthcare disparities are. Preventable. Healthcare disparities are preventable differences in the health and medical conditions of socially disadvantaged populations. And I want you to, I want to kind of pound on the word preventable, because that means that we had an opportunity to make something better, okay, if it's preventable. And so I think now this is a hot button topic. And the reason it's such a hot button topic, it's always been there, don't get me wrong. You know, being in healthcare as long as I've been, and I'm dating myself, 20 years, 2 decades, I've seen this kind of transition. And what really brought it to the forefront was the COVID. Because COVID showed such a disparity in our health between the haves and the have-nots. Because as you know, healthcare disparities, you said, who did it affect? Brown and dark-skinned people, and ethnic and Asian people. And it affects less social economic, if you heard the definition, less social disadvantaged folk. And that's who COVID really affects, because as you know, the rate of death between people of color and non-color was 2-3 to 1. It was that disparity, and we had to start to look at that, because more African Americans died of COVID than a whole lot of Caucasians or white folk did. I mean, let's just be real. And so as we started to look at that, we started to go, why? And what we saw was COVID was attacking people who had diabetes, high blood pressure, and already had health compromise issues. And that's where it found its hold and was able to ravish on that population. And that unfortunately happened to be in brown and black people. And so we had to start to look at that in the healthcare. And so now it's a real hot button topic, because again, it put the light on America, like we're this great country, but it put the light on how we have the haves and the have-nots in healthcare. And it goes back to what I often think about what Martin Luther King said. He said this many years ago. As you know, he was killed in 1964. He said, we're only as healthy as our sickest citizen. And that is exactly what this quote, and that is the quote right now. That is still a point right now. We're as only as healthy a nation as our sickest person is. So you said, who does it affect? It affects brown and dark skinned people and Asian people, okay? More than it does non-color people of color. It affects people who are in areas of disadvantage, who have poverty. And it says, it goes on to say that it affects the burden of disease, injury, violence, and opportunities to achieve optimal health, okay? So it affects those things, because if I start out with high blood pressure, diabetes, and lupus, I'm going to have a worse health outcome than someone who is healthy, who doesn't have these things. And then you got to start to think, if I got diabetes, high blood pressure, and hypertension, and I can't get to my doctor, and my blood pressure is already running 160, 180 over 100, I'm already at a disadvantage, okay? And that's because I can't get there. It also affects people of age, because now they can't get to their doctor's appointment. So their health is compromised. So, you know, that's how it sort of threads all the way through, how it actually affects the whole population. And so what that does is then we don't have the opportunity to get the same level of health care. And particularly, you know, African Americans and people, and we have pockets around Atlanta, in the area, where it's what, you know, I think we're going to talk a little bit about later, healthcare deserts.
Absolutely.
And why, you know, people are not there, and why they're not healthy, because they don't have access to health care. And even if they do have access to health care, they can't get there, and either they don't have insurance, they can't get their medications. And so those are the people and the issues that get worse. It's based on poverty, it's based on economic, social class, it's based on availability, and those disparities get magnified when we had something like COVID, because we needed those healthcare services. and we didn't have them. And they were in certain areas, and certain people could get to them and certain people couldn't get to them. And so we saw the people who couldn't get to them that already started out at a more disadvantaged sort of health situation than they were. And I told patients, I probably treated 200 COVID patients, and I unfortunately lost probably 50. In 1 week, I lost 11 patients in 14 days.
Wow.
That was a breaking point. That was a third wave. That was a third wave after the shots were available, But it was a hard time. But I did see, in my area, I saw who it affected most. And I saw who needed to really get access to the services. And then when the new medications come out, obviously, that was a hard situation because there were folk that couldn't get to the medications, even though they were available. So we always see that. And there's a lot of, again, I'll go back to the point. It's a hot button topic now because now we know. One of my mentors just wrote a book about healthcare disparities and the health disadvantages. Way back when, you may or may not recall Dr. Satcher, who was the Surgeon General. He was the first to start to really highlight that. And he highlighted that in mental health issues because that was a big issue then when mental health issues were not highlighted near as much as medical issues were. But now we see it across the board, and we see it not only in mental health issues, but we also see it in high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, and those things that affect everybody walking around, or a good large portion of the folk walking around. So those are the folk you sort of start to look at with healthcare disparities.
Gotcha. You discussed several factors that contribute to healthcare disparities. One of the factors that I didn't hear you discuss was biases. So can you talk a little bit about healthcare biases?
Oh, absolutely.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. That way you won't ever miss a show.